right? That one piece of information allowed me to be a deeper thinker in several other arenas. And that's because I like contemplating things. I'm always trying to think deeper and outside the box. And I think it's wonderful.
What have you been contemplating lately? What are the deeper understandings that you do have? What are the deeper understandings that you don't have? And what are the implications of those things? You cannot make positive decisions in an area that you don't contemplate.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was last week's live podcast, How to Take Your Business to the Next Level. Today, for episode number 828, Why People Who Say You Think Too Much Are Wrong.
Oh, yeah. If you're out there right now and you listen to this podcast, which you obviously do, this is a contemplative podcast. I remember when we crossed our 500th episode, I remember Emilia asked me, little did I know they were planning a surprise party for us. She asked me, what are you most proud of about your podcast? And I said that we have 500 episodes that are all focused on helping people become better. We don't talk about the weather. We don't talk about sports. We just talk about how to become better human beings. And that is what I was most proud of. That is still to this day what I'm most proud of. Obviously now we have 830 or so episodes. But what Kevin and I want to talk about on this episode is, if you're out there listening, you probably have been told at some point or another you think too much. Because this podcast is for people who enjoy to contemplate life. This is about deep conversations with guests all over the world and with Kevin and I, and being a fly on the wall for deep contemplative conversations. I can't even tell you how many times Kevin and I have been on the mic saying, wow, this is a really contemplative episode. Back when we were the hyper-conscious podcast, hyper-conscious means acutely aware, and my podcast before Kevin and I teamed up was called Conversations Change Lives. But what it might as well have been called is Deep Conversations Change Lives. So I know Kev has a story for you, and I do as well, but basically, if you've ever been told you think too much, what if those other people think too little?
I had another story come to me when you were doing the intro. And it's important to understand your reference group, and we did an episode on that last week, but it's important to understand what are the thoughts and the contemplations that the people around you are having. Because if they're not thinking a lot of the future or the past or the current or weird things like I do, they might misunderstand you into thinking like you're strange. So in this first story, I was on vacation with somebody, and this was a while ago, and we were I think we were in Maine, and we were sitting out on the dock at night. And you could see all the stars in the sky. It was amazing. It was beautiful. And I remember lying there, and I said, how weird is it that we're on a rock that's just hurtling through space, and if gravity ever decided to take a day off, all of this would go away? And the people I was with laughed at me. They're like, that's such a weird thing to think of. And I was like, yeah, but haven't you ever thought of that? Like, when I'm driving down the road, it's the most humbling thing in the world. It's genuinely the most humbling thing in the world. I think of it like all the time. Imagine if you got pulled over by a police officer and they said, hey, you were doing 72 and a 65. And I said, that is true. But do you realize that if gravity decided to take a day off, you would float out into space? Like, there's something super humbling about that. And the people I was with basically said, kind of like, you think too much. Like, what a weird thing to think. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about myself. I say weird stuff to Taryn all the time. Like, what do you think it's like to be a cat? You just lay around all day and lick yourself. Like, that must be an interesting life. And this is the story I told Alan I was going to tell. And this is back in the hyperconscious days. I was dating this girl, and her and I were talking about something. And she texted me, and she said, you need to think less. You think way too much about everything. And I was like, yeah, but isn't that a good thing? Like, why is that a bad thing that I think too much about things? And I think she ended up blocking me, and she doesn't follow me in my journey anymore. But if I went with that, also, imagine what?
You.
No, this is different.
It's a different.
Yeah, different one. But if I went with that, if I just took, you got me with that. There's a story behind that. It's a whole thing. If I,
you got it, man. Power through. You got it.
if I went with what she said, that would have jeffed everything. Like maybe I wouldn't have met Alan. Maybe I wouldn't have met Taryn. Maybe we never would have gone from hyperconscious to next level you, and we wouldn't be where we are today because somebody thought I was weird, because I think too much, because somebody who doesn't think enough tried to cut me down by saying you think too much. Like that's a bad thing. Can thinking too much seem like a bad thing? Yeah, if you're dealing with anxiety and you can't sleep because you're having thoughts, sure, definitely. But if you're thinking constructively about the current, about the future, about your past, if you're contemplating, I think that raises your awareness. That raises your awareness. When we were deciding the title for this episode, I was looking on YouTube, and one of them was, don't overthink, it affects your reality. I think underthinking affects your reality, and I think underthinking also creates limitations that don't exist. So don't be afraid to get out there and think. I don't really believe you can think too much.
Same.
I do believe you can overthink and underact. I do believe that, but I believe thinking and contemplating is the most valuable thing I've ever done.
Same. That's what this episode's about. Kevin, my girlfriend, myself, we've all been told, and I say this on book club all the time, because book club's right smack dab in the middle of a Saturday, and we've had a great showing. I think we had 14 last week, and the week before was like 17 people, which is awesome because it started out with just a few people. And, you know, I basically said to all of them, like, all of us are right smack dab in the middle of a Saturday reading amazing books with incredible people, and we're all just here contemplating life. We're contemplating the past, we're contemplating the present, we're contemplating the future, we're contemplating habits, because we're reading James Clear's Atomic Habits. But contemplation is absolutely critical. You have to contemplate in order to raise your awareness. After your suicidal ideation and my car accident at 26, that's what changed our life, is the fact that we were sitting there in that remorse and that pain, that emotional pain, and we were contemplating our life. And that's what got us on this trajectory. Without the contemplation, we would never have met. We would never have decided to do something so different. Kev, you'll like this. I was on the phone. No, I was on a podcast, the Audacious something with Audley. Yeah. Really positive, awesome
Audacious
dude.
Living, I think.
Audacious Living. And he was talking to me about our show. And he was basically like, wow, like you guys started your show like 5 years ago. Like that was when podcasting was like in its infancy. And I was like, that's interesting. Because when we first started podcasting, how many podcasts were there? Like 500,000 or something?
I don't know. I actually learned something the other day that podcasting started in 2001. First podcast was released in 2003.
No kidding.
Yeah. So okay. It's a lot older than people think, but it just didn't catch on.
Exactly. So, but my point to this story is 5 years ago when Kevin and I started, we didn't think, I mean, I did kind of know that we were fairly new to the industry because some people didn't even know what a podcast was still. I remember my buddy Kiki, he's like, what's a podcast? I'm like, wait, what? Like, so we were fairly new. Then after COVID, a lot of people started podcasts. And this guy, Audley, started his show like a year ago. And he's like, wow, you guys were like at the very beginning, you know? And it's like, yeah, but we didn't really feel that way necessarily. We kind of did. And I've talked to you about that behind the scenes a little bit. But my point is this. His contemplation of when he started his show versus when we did, from his perspective, it's like, wow, you're at the very beginning of podcasting. Like, holy crap. Because since COVID, there's been an additional 2 million podcasts. And so the amount of podcasts when Kevin and I started to now has tripled. Has literally tripled. It's more than tripled. And so from his perspective, we're at the very beginning. From our perspective, we were at the very beginning of the industry. It's just important to understand. If you're out there listening right now, you contemplate your life. You contemplate who you are and who you want to be. You contemplate who you used to be. You contemplate skills you do and don't have, skills you do and don't want to develop. The who, what, when, where, why. Who are you? Who did you used to be? Who do you aspire to be? Who do you want in your life? How are you going to get to your dreams? What are your actual dreams? Where do you want to live? Why do you want to live there? Why do you want to achieve your dreams? What is your deepest why? This podcast was born and bred and created and designed and engineered around contemplation. And anyone who tells you you think too much obviously is thinking too little when it comes to their future. The future does not get better by default. The future gets better by design. And you cannot design your own brighter future without contemplating it.
And the wonderful thing is, as your awareness gets raised, your contemplations get more powerful. You suggested Algorithms to Live By, to listen to that book. And I learned so many things about numbers. I learned how 2-day shipping works. I never thought of that before. Of how do they do... At one point, it took like 10 days to get stuff. Or you just it showed up when it showed up. There was no tracking. It's just yeah, it'll be there when it gets there. Just keep checking the mailbox. Now they can do it in 2 days. Why? Because they have warehouses everywhere, and trending products get stored in facilities that are local to other places. So that's how 2-day shipping works. And that's why you can't get it on everything. It's oh, interesting. I didn't know that. But now that I know that, every decision I make has a different awareness, right? That one piece of information allowed me to be a deeper thinker in several other arenas. And that's because I like contemplating things. I'm always trying to think deeper and outside the box. And I think it's wonderful. And I think in some arenas, in some communities, with some relationships, it won't be valued. And the ones that it is valued, hang on to those. Because it doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you strange. It doesn't make you any of those things. It makes you curious. And curious people tend to get further than people who are just okay with what is.
What is up, you guys? My name is Gabby, and I just want to give a huge shout out to Kevin and Alan for the community that they have created and the mission that they are on over at Next Level University. Never in a million years did I think, when I started listening to the Hyperconscious podcast 2 years ago, that I would be as invested as I am today. But here we are 2 years later. I have done group coaching. I truly look forward to every single episode they drop, all of the things that they're teaching. And I am now doing one-on-one coaching with Alan to help level up in my business. And all I gotta say about these guys across the board is they are true, genuine souls. They mean it when they say they are heart-driven, and they mean it when they say they are no BS. And I think that's probably my favorite part about them. They get rid of the fluff. They give you tactical tips and tricks to help you level up in your life, to help you make strides towards your goals. And they've created a community of like-minded people to lean on each other at every single stage of life. So guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the impact that you have made in my life, and I am so very excited to see the impact and the waves that you make from here on out.
100%. 100%. Kev, I want to ask you a couple questions. One is, and it just jumped off the page for me, speaking of contemplation, I want to contemplate something with you. So my question for you is, you've come way up on business lately, and to bring the listeners behind the scenes, Kevin and I have talked a lot lately about awareness versus implementation. Some people have high awareness but low implementation. Other people have great implementation but low awareness. And very few people have both, but there are some exceptions. And so if you're out there listening, aspire to have both. High awareness, which is good decision making, and great implementation. So when you read a book, and I talk about this in book club all the time, we're not here to just read these books. We set an intention every single week. Every single week, each person types an intention in the chat, and then Christina puts that in the WhatsApp group and then checks in with it midweek. Because I don't want to just read books just to contemplate. I want to contemplate and then take new action. And hopefully every single episode, by the way, for our listeners, that's happening. That's what we want for you too. It's 1% improvement per day. As a matter of fact, I messaged Kevin earlier today. So Kevin's the CFO of our business, so he is responsible for all things money in our business. And he sends me a financial report every single morning, and I looked at it today, and there's a 1% improvement column based on the data. We don't just want to track the data. We want to use the data to make better decisions. And so basically what I said was, Kev, that was an observation, not a 1% improvement. I think you wrote like, we paid the team or something like that.
No, I wrote higher expenses due to Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, higher expenses due to Christmas, which is an observation, not a new action. And so I basically said, like,
buy cheaper Christmas presents next year.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Yes. Same. But here's my question for you, Kev. You've come way up on business. Your awareness has been raised. You see the world differently now, and I know that. Can you explain for the listeners what it's like to go into a business now versus what it used to be?
Oh, wow, yeah. It's almost like, in a way, you see to the next. It's like a video game has graphics, but behind those graphics, there's like a shell of the graphic. So it's almost like you can see, there's almost like an x-ray vision of when I go into a business now, I'm thinking about like, that's why the pizza costs this amount, because it's downtown Boston. So it has to be more expensive real estate, and they're on the main strip. So of course, and like they don't have parking because it would cost too much money, and the people don't really care because they don't really have cars in Boston. So everything starts to make a little bit more sense. And this is an interesting one. I was on the phone with Amy the other day, and shout out to Amy. And she was like, "Hey, are you going to try to break the lease to your studio? Because we still have like another 6-month lease, and we're just not going to use it anymore." And I was like, "Honestly, Amy, it would literally be the worst business move ever for them to let us out of that lease, because everybody's leaving the building. And if they let us, they'd lose $6,000 or whatever, however much it is, $3,000 over the course of the year."
Yeah, 3.
A couple of years ago, I would have been like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're making us stay." It's like, no, it's good business.
Yeah,
they should.
Have to. Yeah,
they should.
That's
So it
why we
helps
signed
me.
a lease.
Yeah, it helps me. It helps me think and understand at a deeper level. It also helps me empathize. It helps me empathize at a deeper level, because it's like, of course, you shouldn't let us out of that lease. You're going to cost yourself $3,000.
Yeah, you still have to pay for the building and the repairs and the,
yeah.
You understand.
I had another thought, but I don't know.
Go down another one, because this is an understanding of, like, look at how much one contemplation leads to a bunch of other contemplations. The rabbit hole goes deep, but it's a wonderful thing. Because now you can make good decisions. We can choose to fight the lease, or we can choose not to waste our time, because they're not going to let us out of it, nor should they. Nor is it even in integrity of us as business owners to want to do that, because it's like, honestly, it makes sense for us to pay that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I told you I was thinking of this the other day. There's a lot of people I follow, like fighters or musicians, who take private jets. And I did research on the economics of private jets. Like, when does it make sense to take a private jet versus flying commercial? And it's basically like some CEOs and company heads, very, very successful people, they make thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour. So every hour they're in the air, unable to work, they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it makes sense for them to take a 5-hour flight that might cost them $30,000 versus be in the air for 12 hours where it's going to cost them $1.2 million. And like, that understanding helped me realize that a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people take private jets to take private jets and to look cool. The people who can actually afford to take private jets take them because it actually saves them money in the long run, which is just an interesting thing for me. And a lot of it has to do with numbers. That's a huge thing that I've really thought of. I'm trying to think of, like, oh, what does this mean? What happens when this goes here? And I've been trying to contemplate on what happens if this happens? What happens if this doesn't happen? What happens if this happens, then this happens. What if this happens? Just contemplating, hanging out, contemplating.
One more tiny example, and the timer went off, so I know we got to go. You'll notice if you're on YouTube, and if you're listening, hopefully you can notice, Kevin has a new mic.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin has a new microphone. Really nice. Love it. We didn't buy those until now because it wasn't economical to buy those until now.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't get a new mic because you want a new mic. You get a new mic because it makes practical sense based on the level we play at in business.
Yeah.
And I think that all of that came through contemplation and through deeper understanding. If there's one thing that I'm able to do on this planet, it's to help people understand the true value of contemplation, because it brings a deeper understanding. The person who understands fitness at the deepest level now has the power to be in shape. The person who understands cars at the deepest level now has the power to never go to a mechanic again. The person who understands money at the deepest level never has to live paycheck to paycheck ever. The person who has the deepest understanding of podcasting, in this case, Kevin, that's what our clients pay you for.
Mm.
They pay you for a deeper understanding. I have camera issues going on with Windows 11 with my new laptop. I'm asking Alessandro because he knows photography. He's been studying photography for 10 years. I've been studying photography for 0 years. I've been studying humans for 33 years. So that's all it is. It's what have you been contemplating? If you're out there watching or listening, I know I say that often, but what have you been contemplating lately? What are the deeper understandings that you do have? What are the deeper understandings that you don't have? And what are the implications of those things? You cannot make positive decisions in an area that you don't contemplate. You can't roll the dice in life and hope it works out. And we're going to do another episode later this week about that. So that's what today was about. Who, what, when, where, why. Who do you want to be? Why do you want to be it? Where do you want to end up? Where do you want to live? Who do you want to spend your time with? You know, how are you going to get there? All these questions, constantly contemplate. That's what this podcast is helping you do. Every single day, we're helping you contemplate new ideas.
Last point. Last Friday, I had a client text me, and she said, "Hey, Kev, I know this is short notice. Is there any chance we can hop on a quick FaceTime? I have an in-person interview, and my sound's not working." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's do it. I don't have any calls right now. Like, I'm down to do it. Let's do it." And we get on the FaceTime, and she's like, "Yeah, this isn't working." And I said, "Okay, are your headphones charged?" She said, "Oh, no, I think they're dead." "Okay, cool. No, we plugged in other ones. They didn't work." This is contemplation in real time. That's all it is. And I said, "Okay, is this cable connected?" "Yep." "Is it on mute?" "Nope." "Is the volume turned up?" "Nope." "All right, yep." And I was like, okay, contemplating. I've done this a bunch of times. I've set this up a bunch of times. Like, what could be wrong? And I said, honestly, just do this for me. Turn it off and then turn it back on. And she's like, "You think that'll do anything?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe." She turned it off, turned it back on, and fixed it. The mixer, yeah.
The mixer, yeah.
And everything was fine. At the beginning, I wouldn't have known that because I hadn't contemplated the issue more than once. The longer you're in something, the better your contemplations get, the better awareness you have, and the better your results, and the better your fixes. So this is another important part of the long game. The longer you stay in something, the better you get, as long as you're focusing on 1% improvements and you're thinking, well, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? So I wanted to add that little story. Next Level Nation, if you are watching us on YouTube, you see that I have the green lights for Christmas, one of my favorite holidays, but that also means New Year's is very, very close. Our 5th group of group coaching will be starting on January 4th, and Alan is pointing towards nextleveluniverse.com. If you want 2022 to be the best, most next level year of your life, if you're sick of breaking promises to yourself, if you really want to be consistent and you've been struggling with that, if you want a new awareness, if you want to think more and contemplate more with awesome people, please join that. We are only taking 10 people, and I can guarantee it will be an amazing shift in your life.
Get around next level people if you want a next level life. Group coaching is specifically designed and engineered to unlock your true potential. And I'm not just saying that, it's exactly how we engineered the NLU team, because we've figured out at this point how to unlock and get extraordinary results from ourselves, from the team, from group coaching. We've already graduated 40 people. We want you to be the next person that graduates. And again, 2022 will not be different by default. It will only be different when you do something different. It'll be different by design. And this is designed to help you make 2022 and the rest of your life different.
And I challenge you, if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, it's too much money, or I'm just not ready for that, or I'm scared, I challenge you to really get outside of your comfort zone. We have the most amazing listeners in the world, and Alan and I have been privileged to get the opportunity to talk to many of you, but we want to see more of you, whether that's sharing the stuff or reaching out for help, especially, or going deeper with something like group coaching. At the end of the day, we want to make as many people next level as possible and bring them to their next level. So please reach out if you need anything, if you need advice, if you need whatever. We're here for you. Our stuff is under Alan at Never Quit Kid. and at Lazarus88 on the gram. Tomorrow, for episode number 829, last week's live Q&A, what is the biggest mistake early entrepreneurs make? Alan and I have seen/made many of them, so tune in for that. And as always, at Next Level You, we are grateful for all of you, and we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.